Okay, we're recording live here.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by. How you doing today? Our guest today is a visionary CEO committed to revolutionizing charitable giving in Canada, the founder of Charitable Impact. What a wicked name, hey? The man, the myth, the legend, Jonathan Bromley. How you doing today, man? Thanks so much for coming on the show.
I am doing very well. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Right
That's
on.
awesome.
Right on.
That's awesome, John. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, actually, we've had a few guests that have asked Devin if they would just follow him around and introduce him every time he stepped into a room.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I was thinking a little bit of Jeopardy mixed in there with
Yeah,
just the
right.
energy. If I could
That's
just
right.
bottle that energy up, I could use it at my tender age of almost 46. So I'm turning
Wow, wow.
46 this month.
We'll
Well, yeah,
tour. We'll
I'm
tour with it.
I'm two
The guy
decades
might.
older than you, pretty much. So,
Yeah.
well, not no, I'm not actually. I'm 61, 62 next month. So,
Ah, you're doing pretty good, Nige. Look at you.
thanks, Dev. Thanks,
Yeah,
Dev.
I got you.
Actually, John, so I just want to tell our listeners here, this is actually a really timely interview that we're doing because as we mentioned offline there just a few minutes ago, that the reason that we have this podcast impact is that we've been so fortunate to be able to travel and to meet so many incredible people around the planet that are doing amazing things in these organizations and these nonprofits and charities and whatnot. And so we decided to start a podcast. So that's what Devin and I have been doing for this is our third season here now,
Yeah.
and we've met incredible people from all over the world. And it in this space in the charity and then the people that are giving to help these people or help these organizations, it can get really kind of muddled up and confusing because we have so many people coming across our bow all the time. Is do I donate to this or do I donate to that? And if I do,
Mm.
where does it go? How do I keep track of everything? So yeah, so with your company, I think it's perfect timing because we've done so many interviews with so many nonprofits and charities that this kind of hits the nail on the head and how people consolidate everything. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about yourself. Where are you? You know what you've been up to, why you got into this, and then we'll go into what your company does.
Yeah, sure. Well, first, before I tell you a little bit myself, you just hit a nail on the head there from our perspective at Charitable Impact.
Hmm.
You described the donor side of the
Hmm.
charitable giving world, right? There are, qualified donees. There's registered charities that take the money
Yeah.
and do the important work of the programming and stuff, right? So they actually get the change done. But in the donor world, we support it with our time and our talents also, as well as our money or our treasure. But
Hmm.
who's there to support the donor along the way, right? And that's one of the key things that we asked, and one of the key reasons we started Charitable Impact was just the recognition that, generally speaking, as a donor, regardless of what charities you care about giving to, or what causes are most important to you, or how much money you have to give away, even there's really
Hmm.
nowhere to go to get support for you as the donor. And so we started,
Right.
Charitable Impact as this thing that kind of looks a little bit like a charity bank.
Mhm.
You get your own account, put money in, you get a tax sheet, and you can now send it to any registered charity of your choice. So it's not our job to tell you what charity to send it to. That's up to
Right.
you, right? It's your giving your way with our support. But we're there to guide you along the way. And it's like, well, you think about analogous situations. You're like, oh, I think I want to buy a house. What do I do? Well, you can look up on the internet, find a
Yeah.
mortgage broker who's going to work for you. You can find
Yeah.
a bank that's going to give you a mortgage going to work for you. You can find a real estate agent who's going to work for you, and you still get to choose the house. So in the charity world, it just, there's just this real sort of lack of support on the donor side, and it was really
Mhm.
important to us to try add value to the charity sector by supporting the donors. Where in most scenarios, in about 9 out of 10 scenarios I face at the least, are people who are doing really good important work, but it's all supporting the charities and not the donors
Right.
themselves. So
Right.
that's not background on me. I mean, it's some
Mhm.
background on my thinking.
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
that's background certainly on charitable impact, though. So you sorry for taking your first question and throwing
It's
it
okay.
back at
We
you
can
in a
spin
different
things
way.
around all the time here. It's all right. It's all good.
Yeah. So look, hey, we're from the same part of the world. It sounds like
Yeah.
I'm from Vancouver. Uh, Grew up here,
Mhm.
and went to school at McGill, actually, which was a really rad thing for me because I
Yeah.
loved Montreal.
Yeah.
Met the love of my life there, and we're married today. Somehow I was able to get her to move across the country,
Wow.
back to Vancouver. So I'm back here today. Generally speaking, the story with regard to how I got into something like charitable impact, because it's a weird kind of thing to get into. People either say something like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," as if I can't get a job doing anything else other than charity, or they say the exact opposite, like, "That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow." And then it's like as if I don't have anything to add to, of value. I'm just a really nice person, you
Right.
know. So and neither of those extremes are actually true. In my case, I grew up in a family that just really valued charitable giving. So I was exposed to it. My parents modeled it, right? And they even forced us at some level to participate in it, right? They, as a younger guy, people, I've got two sisters, we were sort of, very heavily encouraged, arguably forced to, volunteer to take some of the money that we got for an allowance, for example, and give some of it away. Looking back, those were incredible, important things that my parents did for me, notwithstanding the fact that I probably just wanted to spend all the money on a skateboard and not give it away.
Sure.
A little later in life, so I went to McGill, I studied business, and I worked in business, corporate finance mostly, for a number of years. After that, I kind of I was at a big bank called RBC Capital Markets.
Yeah.
I left that job. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I hadn't fallen in love with corporate finance, notwithstanding the fact that I loved sort of being there, and it was really important to me to learn a bunch of stuff, financial literacy in particular. And it just so happens that my dad is, one of, arguably two, depending on how history is told, but one of very few charity pioneers in the legal field in Canada. So he's like the pioneer of charity law.
Right.
So in this space that no one knows anything about,
Yeah.
the guy who just happens to be my dad, and he's still my dad today. I mean, good relationship, love the guy. Hi, Dad. Happened to have this insanely deep expertise
Right.
in charity, and as a pioneer, he had this sort of. He's not particular entrepreneurial. I mean, sorry if Dad, if you disagree with that, but like he's like, he was a real pioneer. He's a real explorer in the sense that he saw an area of the law where there was no expertise, yet there was sort of a demand for things, right? It's like, he saw people sort of going to their divorce lawyer to, like, ask questions about charity, which is like, going to your dentist for heart surgery. It's not it's not the best idea if you're looking for, good advice. And so he did that, and he was one of the people who helped build the space where today in 2024, it's not totally normal, but it's more normal that you actually have a lawyer inside your law firm that has some knowledge, around nonprofit, and or charitable law. So I left RBC and sort of stumbled quite accidentally, actually, into working with him. And then it's like, I don't know, kind of being like Wayne Gretzky's son or something. It's like, gee, it's hard not to like learn a lot about hockey, even if you're you're not interested, right? In this case, I was interested. I was actually working with them, and frankly, like, saw more hardcore and soft and legal and fundraising and just all the components of the charity sector. Saw more of that kind of content in a consultative space in a short period of time, even though it was many, many, many years. And I just got to the point where I could see problems in the charity sector and understand them. And then it was basically, it felt almost like it was like a predestination thing, not to be super cheesy or anything, but like, I never intended to be an entrepreneur. And here I was kind of going like, if I don't start something like Charitable Impact, I'm not doing my part in the world. And it was so obvious to need to start Charitable Impact because of what we talked before earlier. There's no one there to work with the donor to help them sort of create the impact they want to see in the world without forcing a charity down their throat the way, I mean, that's bad language, but the way sort of the sales or fundraising methodology does sometimes feel like from an experiential point of view. Right. And so that's pardon the longer breath there, but that's how I got into it.
That's really interesting because so my RBC guy here, RBC Dominion, wealth management guy. Over the years, I've met with him because we were wanting to put together like a family foundation, right? So we're going to put a foundation that was like, I just thought foundation, great idea. We can use that for charitable giving over the next, whatever years, and then it'll go to the kids and whatever. But it just seemed to be such a bit of a pain in the butt to try and set this thing up, and just all the hoops and things we had to go through and all the legal stuff. And at the end of the day, was it really something we wanted to do or not? So we've I ended up pulling back and then going back into giving to these various charities that we support. And there's a whole ton of them, but it gets confusing. And there could be some that are so significant that we give, and then other ones where we're giving like $50 or whatever it is. And it's like, but it's so hard to remember, and oh, did I get the tax receipt for that? What, it's just very, it gets kind of convoluted, and especially coming up now, we're getting closer to tax season, right? And you got to find all that stuff and then submit it all, and so it does get a little bit confusing. So I went down the whole avenue of, do we do a foundation and what's the benefits of doing that? And then I kind of pulled back. Well, it's always wait and see. Let's just see. Well, maybe we'll do it next year. Maybe. And so I never did it. So yeah, so I think what you guys are doing is actually kind of really cool for people like all of us that want to give, but we don't. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I love that. So, by the way, join the user research forum at Charitable Impact anytime. You just
Right.
articulated
Right.
very, very, very well, very clearly, a super normal problem
Mm,
for donors, particularly donors who are engaged with giving. Okay, so
right.
there's
Right.
there's people who give, and then there's people who are quite engaged with it, and then there's people who sort of just do it every now and again when we're asked, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like other things in life, by the way, right? It's people who kind of exercise like 3 or 4 times a week, because then they build it into their routine, and then people who are like, Tom asked me to go for a run, should I do it? And they might say yes, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
look, that's it's great, you need both, but so
Mm.
yeah, you're right. Look, the foundation, I won't go into length. I got lots of experience with this. I've been involved registering probably 200 foundations. So you
Right.
would be the type of person who might have found us years ago, and that we would can consult with and tell you what to do, and even register the charity for you if you went that route.
Yes. Yes.
But in that process, I'm kind of going, does he really need that? Right? Because
Exactly.
it is a pain in
Exactly.
the butt. So
Yeah.
foundations are useful, but really, if you're you know one out of 100 person, I won't describe unless you're interested when and why I think foundations are useful today in 2024.
Right.
But
Yes.
for every donor, every person who gives money away, it's my view that the experience that you get using a foundation is super useful.
Right.
Donate your money into one place, take the tax receipt right away, sit on that money and look at it and analyze it so that you can figure out how to use that money according to what you want to create change for in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right? How are you going to find the charities? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
so donate now when you want to, whether it's tax planning or it's just what you're feeling to hit your monthly budget or whatever. And do that with one part of the brain. And then
Mm-hmm.
use the other part of your brain to go, okay, now that I've got that $100 or $100,000 or $100 million in this account,
Yeah.
what am I going to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
What charities am I going to give to? Am I going to volunteer for them first? When
Mm-hmm.
I give them
Mm-hmm.
money, do I want to be anonymous or do I want them to know who I am? Right? All these kind of things. And so what charitable impact is, it's what's known to charity nerds out there as a donor advised fund. And a
Mm-hmm.
donor advised fund provides the no administration kind of experience of having your own foundation.
Mm.
It's not technically your own foundation, it's your own account housed underneath a broader foundation, which we call the Charitable Impact Foundation.
Right.
Right. And so you have
Right.
your own account.
Yes.
You put the money in that account,
Yeah.
you get the tax receipt right away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you
So
could use a
it
credit card.
doesn't matter what it goes to. I mean, you get a tax receipt right away as soon as you put
Right.
it into your account. And then
Right.
it can sit there, and then you can decide, okay, I want X amount to go to whatever it is. So the Vancouver Aquarium
Right.
or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Great charity, Vancouver Aquarium. Right. So exactly. So then that's how a foundation works too, by the way. You donate first into your foundation.
That's
You
right.
take the tax
That's right.
receipt so that's the gift at law. Sorry to get a
Yes.
little technical here. That's
No.
when the donation happens at law. So when you donate to your private foundation or your donor advised fund,
Yeah.
that's the donation. You get the tax receipt then. It's now no longer your money. It's actually not your money. You don't own it personally. You can no longer use it to buy licorice or a Ferrari. Okay.
Yep.
But what you can do in the donor advised fund and in the foundation by controlling through the board of directors is say, okay, now we want to spend this money by giving, a grant to this charity or to that charity or to this charity to that charity. So the donor advised fund tool gives you the account. You can centralize all your tax receipts now, right? All your money is in one place.
Yeah.
And then you can go in and say, oh, okay, here's the charity I want to send it to, Vancouver Aquarium, for example. And, boom. And then we deliver the money to them.
Right. Right.
And so all those problems you talked about, tax sheets here and there, big gifts for some charities, small gifts for others, anonymity. Sometimes other charities, you want them to know who you are. Being able to look back to last year and say, what did I do last year or 2 years ago? Oh, gee, I say I'm really focused on climate change, but I give all my money to health, right?
Right.
That's up to you to think about. I'm not going to tell you which one's better.
Yeah.
So the donor advisement provides that donor-centered tool, and the experience is kind of like having your own bank account just for charitable giving. And so that's the context in which, like, we're not a bank, right? We're a donor advised fund, but that's the context in which the experience we give to people is kind of like the experience of being banked, right? Because in between the donation and allocation, if you want to call us and have a question about something, go nuts. We've got a team here to support you. If you've got a lot of money in your account and you want your RBC DS advisor to manage it for you so you can earn some returns in the market before you allocate out to charity, you can do that with us too.
Okay, that's excellent.
Cool.
So yeah, so it's interesting here. Like, the reason we also have this podcast is like we have different generations. So we have Devin is the younger generation. I'm the older guy. So we have different perspectives on things. So speaking to that, say somebody like Dev, you're 27, right? And you're kind of, I guess, starting out a little bit more than starting out, and just starting to think about this type of thing, setting something like this. So there'd be would you have any questions, Dev, like around, say, that as a younger guy, starting to think about maybe giving a little bit to charities? Or
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's an awesome thing you guys do, and yeah, I feel like it's always so hard when people come knocking at your door and they're like, "Hey, do you want to like?" And I'm like, "All right, well, I'll give you some money on my wallet," but then they're like, "No, we only take credit cards or this or that," and I'm always like, "Oh, well, maybe go to the older people," and then they're like, "Well, they always tell us to go to the younger people, and the younger people always tell us to go to the other people, so it's just not." It's just running around in circles basically. But yeah, like now that me and my partner run like an established business now, I think we'd be looking more into something like this. But yeah, getting started, like I would not really know where to get started. And of course for tax and stuff it'd be, yeah. And so this is the place basically. But yeah, for like people who like don't know, so for everybody from like has a big business that could be offering like a lot in donations, and then from people who just like want to donate $50, this is the place to go for you guys?
Yeah. Well, look us up and choose us on our merits, right? But yeah, 100%. And I'll talk a little bit about next generation giving if you want to. But just one of the things that's unique about Charitable Impact is we're the first donor advised fund in Canada that said, look, regardless of how much money you have, you can work with us. Right. So our biggest accounts are close to $100 million in value. Wow. One account. And yet, we have tens of thousands of accounts that, sometimes have money in them and sometimes don't. Right. That where people contribute $50 a month. Right. So it's not my view at all that philanthropy is only for the wealthy. That's total garbage,
no,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like voting's not for the wealthy either. I mean, philanthropy at some level is a way of voting with your dollars to allocate money towards the causes that you think are most important to you. So it's really important, by the way, to learn about charitable giving and to increase your literacy over time with charitable giving, just like it's important to learn how to cook so you can take care of yourself, right? And have friends over and, have an enjoyable evening. So the question becomes, where's there to learn about giving? So that's by the way, if you asked me, John, got a little bit of experience in the charity sector, what do you think the biggest problem is? What I would say is the biggest problem facing the charitable sector today is that there's really nowhere to learn about giving, right? As a
Right.
result, you've got all these people with these intrinsic nature of generosity, the way all humans do, but they don't know how to
Sure.
convert that into action over time. So maybe that's a nice lead in while we brief about, youth. So and learning to give when you're younger. So the first point is,
Mm-hmm.
it's not about how much money you have. It's about the experience of starting to figure out that your time, talent, and money that you have can be used to create change in the world, right? That's important for people to understand it, and in so doing, it's meaningful, and meaningful stuff can be, like, is often really fun, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
every moment is fun, but
Yeah.
it's a fun, useful way to spend your time and your money and use your talent. So my kids aren't 27. My kids are 12 and 11.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I do, my partner and I give them
Mhm.
a charitable allowance, right?
Oh,
So I just set up an account for them at Charitable Impact,
Right.
and I send $10 a month, set up as a recurring gift from my account to their account. Now they've got $10 a month coming to their account,
right.
Mm-hmm.
and every month they can decide what to do. For what it's worth, I've got one kid that goes in there, like, gets excited that his account has pinged him to say you've got $10 in there from mom and dad,
Yeah.
and he goes in there, and he pretty much allocates it pretty quickly after getting it. My other kid's like, no, you know what? I'm trying to get to $1,000. I want to give one big whack, or
Yeah.
maybe two big whacks to, a couple of charities that I think are really important. Hey, son, number two, do you know what charities are important to you yet? I think it's this cause, but I don't know yet, Dad. You know what I mean? And that's cool. It's fine,
That's cool. Yeah.
right? Because what you want is, you want to develop the experience. One experience isn't necessarily better than the other.
Right.
The kid who allocates immediately might be the kid who holds money later in life, or vice versa. Um, and you just want them to know that charitable giving is something that they themselves can do, and that has to be taught.
Yes.
Charitable giving is a skill,
Mm-hmm.
not unlike, it's also, then it becomes a lifestyle, but it is something that you actually have to learn about how to do, and the better you learn about it, the more likely you are to stick in the game of charitable giving, because the confidence piece doesn't annoy you out of the game. When you've got confidence, you can go, oh well, that was lame, I'm not going to do that again, I'm going to do this next time.
Right.
So confidence is a huge key that's missing in charitable giving for a lot of donors today, and a reason why more people aren't participating in charity. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
solvable problem, in my opinion. It's actually one of
Mm-hmm.
the things Charitable Impact is focused on doing.
Yeah, I mean, I
Very
like what
cool.
you're saying. I mean, when we started this conversation, was that you talked about your childhood and that your parents had got you involved as a very young, and all this stuff. And I think that's so right. Everything is learned, and it becomes a habit, and then it becomes a rhythm of just doing this, right, over time. And it's like Devin was saying, it's like with the younger, we teach people when they're young, they're going to keep doing it when they're old. It's just this habit that becomes something, and I think that's super super important. So to teach our kids, I mean, we were really fortunate, and I mean, Dev, I don't know how many times we would we would take part in charities. Like, we'd go to Mexico and build homes for the homeless. We led a lot of trips to Mexico to do that, and that was, I mean, your sister, she's 24 now. First time we
Yeah.
met, she was 3. So she was 3. You were probably 6, and your brother was 7, right, or
Yeah.
8. And I don't know how many we went, 18 times or something. A lot of times. But it's that rhythm. It's that rhythm of going when they're young, and giving and helping and whatever. And it just becomes part of a lifestyle. And so that's giving of yourself, which I think is super, super important for all of us to, get out and, and volunteer our of ourself, and then giving of a check, or giving whatever we can afford, is incredible, right? So it's kind of a double double whammy there. But yeah, exactly. So when we're young, and start
Yeah.
when we're young, and then you get to the old guys like me. So when you get old guys like me, where you're a lot of my friends now are retiring, which is kind of a scary word. I don't like that word. But they're either downsizing, and they're moving away, and they're giving stuff away. They're passing it down to the next generation, and then they're like, oh man, I've never really given. I really like to start supporting this charity, or this whatever nonprofit, or whatever it is. But they've got no idea, because they've done the little, $50 here and there to Western Wilderness, whatever it is, and all these guys. But Now it's just like, oh my gosh, I'd like to really kind of get involved. So how would you like if I was going to come in and talk to you, how would you, talk to me about something like that? A different guy, like you got Devin's generation and everybody in between, then you get the people that are starting to retire that have cash to give.
Well, we actually have a philanthropic advisory component at Charitable Impact. So we actually have people that
Uh-huh.
we put on staff, uh, and I'm one of them, arguably, who's willing to sit down with you or talk with you online
Yeah.
and figure because and work with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way I would approach you and Devin would be the same in terms of philosophical approach, but it would be totally different because like you guys are different ages, different stages, different people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 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 generally speaking, what you do there is especially as a philanthropic advisor or a charity banker, is you want to just really find out who your customer is. So who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And that includes anything from kind of like, so how much money do you think you have to give away and why, all the
Yeah.
way through to what types of things are you trying to create change for in the world and why,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would talk to you in that kind of way, right? Look, like
Mm-hmm.
it's, what is it, it's early January, right? So we just came through December
Right.
31st, for
Right.
example, just to be boring about it but a little bit financial. It's like, well, is the tax receipt important to you?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people would say no. Other people would be like, oh, actually, I sold my company last year. I got this bonus at work.
There
And
you
yeah,
go.
I'd rather, you know what I mean? And so it's like, well, hurry up and put your money in your donor advised fund before December 31st. Take the tax receipt, and then we can have the conversation after the holidays about what causes you care about. Right. So the
Right. Right.
utility of the tool and the service is there for all donors. Right.
Right.
Even donors who are like, oh, I don't care about the tax receipt. Okay, well, but if you go to the restaurant, there's two burgers and they're exactly the same, and
Yes.
one's 50% off. Which one do you buy?
Yeah.
Well, I buy the 50% off burger, right? So even though you're not looking to buy a burger on sale, it's like the tax receipt's valuable to you anyway, right? The government gives you tax receipts to incentivize people financially to put money in the charitable sector. Take the tax receipt, right?
Right.
You don't have to be motivated by the tax receipt, but take the half price, off sale when you can. So anyway, we would just meet you where you are, and we'd sort of say, like, who are you and what are you trying to get done?
Mm-hmm.
When someone doesn't know anything about the amount of money they want to give away because they're sort of not practiced yet, if they're the 60-year-old who hasn't really given that much,
Yeah.
normally you start with like, what are the causes you care about and why? And what's really interesting about that question is that it tells you a lot about people, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have three beliefs at Charitable Impact. The first belief is that everyone in the world has something they care about changing,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So there's not like a single person. I'm not saying everyone's good and there's bad people in the world, etc. But like even the bad people have something they care about changing the world. The second belief is that you've got something to give towards creating that change that you want to make, whether it's with your
Mm-hmm.
time or your talent or your treasure, right? The third one we talk about, which people sort of react against, is when you give, you get something in return.
Absolutely. That's right.
Like the feelings of giving away, whether it's or even the boring tax receipt, or the in my sense, like I get something when I give something to my children because I watch them start to experience, giving money away. This is also when we give, it's not just about the change that we make for others, it's also about the change we create for ourselves. And it's not to say get all selfish about charitable giving, but it's to recognize that charitable giving is largely about you and your experience in life as much it
Mm-hmm.
is as it is also, and arguably primarily, about the change that you make in the world. And that's a really important message for me. I don't want it
Yes. Yes.
misinterpreted, but it's a really important message because like charitable giving's cool. And you know what? When
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned older people, I'm getting older every day, just like both of you guys. But like, when you talk to people at the end of life, you know what one of their biggest regrets is?
Yeah, they didn't.
Consi- that's right. Consistently across the board, across cultures,
Mm-hmm.
across national jurisdictions and countries, people routinely regret kind of not being more engaged with, community and giving back and leaving something on the table. And
Right.
it's not because they're like, it's not always because they're like, oh, because that next generation is garbage, even though us old people like to always say that about the next generation, right?
It's always
Right?
been
It's
that way.
and that's never going to change.
Never
It's
gonna
actually
change.
because of what they missed in life by not doing so. So if
Mm,
that's true,
Yeah.
like get on the giving horse and
Mm.
start participating, because it's actually a rad thing to do for you
Yes.
as well as for everything else that you want to create change for in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And
wicked.
there's I'll just share another a story. I was very confused. I saw a good buddy of mine, Dave. He was incredible in giving in Vancouver East, downtown East Side, setting up hotels for homeless shelters and all this stuff. Incredible, incredible guy. I love him to death. He's like a brother. But we were in this business group called the Entrepreneurs Organization, and we had a forum group meeting down in San Diego. And I was sitting with him having lunch, and I was just like, I was probably 45 at the time or something, and I was just like, oh my God, like he does so much. I want to do something, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. So I said to Dave, I said, Dave, like, how did you've got three, you got sorry, you got two kids that were young. You've got all these different businesses, you're doing all, and you're doing this as well. Like, how do you do that? And he just said, Nigel, stop, stop. He says, it looks like all of this, but it all started with a baby step. And he said, you don't have to, give X amount right away. He says, start by chatting to a homeless person on the side of the street. Give him $5. Don't question what he's going to do with it. And the rest will just evolve over time. And I'm like, really? Like, okay, whatever. So I was driving home from the airport, came back from San Diego driving, and I gave a homeless guy $5 on the side of the road. And for the next half an hour, I had this burning warm feeling of like, I mean, it was only $5, but I was just like, oh, I did something pretty good there. That was, I kind of like that. And then as the years goes by, now we're getting our family involved and we're doing getting involved with all these amazing organizations. And it's just that it's like we're helping, like you said, it's like we're helping these people and just seeing these people and the results. But then something is definitely deposited back in you. It is and tenfold whatever you've given.
Mm,
And I always say giving of yourself is amazing, but giving of as a family, there's nothing white that can ever come close to that.
mm,
And we've been involved in Covenant House down here in Vancouver for many years now. We do the sleep out. We sleep on the streets, and we raise a lot of money for homeless at risk youth, right? And I'm doing it again with my wife, and we've got a team together. February 29th, we're sleeping in the alleyway downtown Vancouver, and we get to visit the kids. We get to talk with the kids, and we donate, and we raise all this money, and it's amazing. And it's the worst night of our lives because you're sleeping in an alleyway and there's rats and it's freezing cold. But that next morning, you're completely buzzed out, and you realize that, oh my gosh, how could kids like live like this, like day after day living on the street? But you walk away from that and you were glowing for 2 weeks, 3 weeks afterwards. Your body, you're just like, you feel so good um after giving. And I don't know, I think we're all wired, like you said, even you get some bad guy and wherever he is, I think we're all wired somewhere deep down inside in that way to give and make a difference in our world, to make our world a better place. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but I think it's true. And I want to
Well,
believe
it's probably a cliche for a reason. Anyway, there you go, right? When you give
that.
something, you get something in return.
Get
Let me just
something.
make one
Yeah.
comment. I love that
Yeah.
comment you made about your
Mm.
friend. I mean, he's
Yeah.
right
About
in my
Dave.
experience about Dave. Like he's
Hmm.
right in my experience. So you got to start somewhere. It's like, let me just say two things on that. One is, do you know how many times, I've met people who are, quote, relatively younger, who are like, oh yeah, no, giving's really important to me, but I'm going to make a whole bunch of money first before I give it away.
Right.
mm,
Right.
Right.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And guess what never happens?
Never happens. Yeah.
Yeah, they never give it
Well,
away.
it's
So it
it's the
never
same thing
happens.
as, oh, I'm going to be happy when I make all this money. I just need to work harder, harder, harder. I'm going to be happy when never happens. It's the
Well,
same
that's
thing.
an interesting point.
It's
That's
the
a really
same
interesting
thing.
point. That's true, right? Because it's the journey as much as the event, right? And then, but
Yeah.
here's the other thing. Like, think about it this way. I don't know if you've ever run or anything, but it's like, oh no, do you do any exercises? No, no, no. But I'm gonna run a marathon. Like, I'm just gonna wait, and then I'm gonna run a marathon. It's like, bro, that's not how it works. And you physically can't do that.
Yeah.
Right? Like you run a marathon by first getting off the couch and walking around the block. And then you walk, and then you do that every day. And then you start running around the block, and then you make it 2 blocks and 3 blocks. You get my analogy, right? So it's like, the point is like this whole facade of, which is all largely built around like philanthropy, is like all for the wealthy, and it's some like great societal thing. I mean, some of the great societal thing is true, but it's actually something that's for all of humanity to participate in, right? And it's just because the wealthy people, give the big gift and their name goes on the wall, and it's seeing, and there's a spotlight there. That's like one of the major differences, right? We all participate in giving. And if you ever want to build yourself up to the point of being able to get your name on the wall within reason, and particularly for your name on that wall to really be meaningful to you and others, you better start practicing today, man.
Yeah.
Right? Like Lionel Messi didn't just become the best soccer player in the world. Like, it's
the GOAT. Yeah.
The GOAT probably touched the ball when he was 2, and then 4, and then 5 and 6 and 7, and then every day, and still today, every day. Right? Philanthropy is no different. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, around philanthropy is that it's like this check you write, instead of it's this thing that you make a part of your life.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it is a lifestyle.
And you choose to participate in it. And when you do that, A, you build confidence. And B, when you have some confidence, you start going, that wasn't great. I'm going to change it. And you put responsibility for mistakes on yourself as much as you do other people. And when you put responsibility on yourself, it's way easier and more fun to stay in the game. It's not someone else's fault that I did bad on that podcast. It's my own fault. What do I need to do to get better at being a podcaster?
Right. And I know and I'm going to share another story. I'm sorry. I just love this topic. I just love this topic so much that, because it can be overwhelming. It can be this whole philanthropy and the charity. It can be so overwhelming. And I remember our family were down in Guatemala. We were in 2012. It was a Mayan calendar changeover, and we were with a group, and we were with our leader there, John Perkins, and he basically said, "Okay, everybody, go off into the jungle for half an hour and contemplate on your own, why you're here and what's going on." And I was just in the middle of I was really a bit confused. So I found this Kapok tree, leaned up against it, and I'm going, "Nigel, what are you doing? You're trying, you're trying to save the world with this big brush, and you want to." I want to save the world, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do that. And I thought, I'm trying as hard as I can, but really, does it make a difference? Like, it's the problems of the world are so great and so big. Like, does it make a difference? And I got really depressed, to be honest with you. And I sat down against this Kapok tree, and I looked down. And Devin's heard this story before. I looked down, and I saw a string of cutter ants all coming past me. And I don't know how I didn't step on them, but they're going past. They're all carrying their little sticks and their twigs, and they're just going by. And I had a bracelet on my wrist, and I took it off, and I blocked their path, and they stopped for a bit, and they bumped into it, and they went, and they figured their way around. They just kept on going, and they're all doing their little bit, and they're all carrying their little stick. And I thought, that's what it is. Nigel, you don't have to save the world. It's a collective of people doing good little deeds. Some are able to do big deeds. It's all of us together. People from Ethiopia to London to Bangkok to wherever they are in the world, to Vancouver here, all collectively doing our little bit to make the world better for all life on our planet. And I got up and like, that's it, Nigel. You don't have to, but your contribution does make a difference. It makes a huge difference. So, keep on the path and whatnot. You may never, ever know who those people are. You will never know who those people are in London and Bangkok and whatever. That doesn't matter. They're there, and everybody collectively doing this makes a difference. So I'm not going to say any more about that, but that was my experience.
That question, it's not a question, but that statement on, not knowing whether your giving makes a difference is part of everybody's giving journey.
Sure.
Right. And it's actually part of everyone's journey, I think, in everything that's kind of skill based. Right. I mean, not to go back to soccer, but like, did you really contribute during that game? Right. So, part of being able to recognize it is to be in the game long enough to have that type of aha moment that you had with you and the ants. And it's probably not the only time you had those aha moments along the way, right? So it's to be able to stay in the game long enough to recognize that you do make a difference, and that you are your ant. You're amongst these other ants carrying things out, and without you, it wouldn't happen as quickly or as well as if it would happen with you, right? The other thing, completely changing things now, by the way, but just to bring it back to charitable impact, like one of the things, so there's lots of social science around, like, if you hang out with other smokers, you're more likely to smoke. Right.
Yeah, right.
So so it's also true, by the way, like if you hang out with other people who give, you're more likely to give.
Right.
And for this reason, it shouldn't surprise anyone if you know that, for example, like giving is a part of all sort of major religious theology. It should be no surprise that religious people give 4 times more in Canada than non-religious people, right? Why? Because, well, they're taught about it, and because they see other people do it, and when you see other people do it, you want to do it also. So it's the same thing. So back to your comment of, I might not never see the people in Bangkok or the people in Toronto or the people in Manitoba who are doing this kind of stuff. That's one of the things that you don't see in the charity world today. There's nowhere to go to kind of see what other donors are doing. And so one of the aspirations Charitable Impact has is to bring about something that looks a little bit more like a social network for giving. Right. So I can go online and I can find you if you allow yourself to be found, and I can follow you, and then I can learn from seeing what you actually do with your philanthropy. Right. So what we're not saying is, if you give, you have to share all your giving data with everyone else, because if you want to be private about your philanthropy, you should be able to be, in my opinion. And so we're going to enable that. But also you should be able to learn from other people. Right. Oh, I love Drake. What does he do for giving? Oh, really? He supports these, he's supposed, what about Nigel? Oh, he really is into, I never heard of Covenant House and what it does for at-risk youth in Vancouver. Wow, that's cool, because I care about that cause too. Right. So there's ways to learn about charitable giving through the social networks that we have. There's ways to do that. The problem is that there's no social networks connecting people on the topic of giving or philanthropy. And so it's one of our longer term aspirations at Charitable Impact to enable that experience as part of our mission. To increase access to and participation in giving.
Oh, I love it. Because I mean, a collective, a group together, they're able to share ideas and whatnot, and that's invaluable, because we're all out here alone. We feel alone anyway. In the giving world, it's like we feel alone. It's like, and that's why I think it's really powerful when we get together. Even with, say, I'll use the Covenant House again. There's like 60 or 70 of us all sleeping out. We've all had to raise funds, but we're all together. We're all together in this rah session down there the night we're sleeping out. And it just feels so good. You just go, wow, all you people are doing this incredible thing to help. And you're not alone anymore. Like, you're like, it's this group, this collective, and the energy ball just keeps growing and rolling. And that's what you're doing there with this. This is great. I love it.
I love that. Really quickly, you know what we're also together in, by the way, as humans, as society, we're together in those problems existing. Right. So we're together in there being a bunch of homeless youth in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Right. And we're together in whatever problems and opportunities stem from that.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're also, therefore, by definition, together in working towards solutions to that, or in completely ignoring it. Right. So the thing is with the humans is, like, we're together either way.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it? And when you do something, how are you going to learn from the person who's done it before and has more experience than in it than you? And what are you going to do to model it for the person who's got less experience than you?
Sure.
Right. So every person has a role to play, regardless of how much, time you have to give away, or how much money you have to give away, or what causes you care about, or what specific charities you give to. Because I can learn from you giving without even giving to Covenant House.
Right.
Notwithstanding the fact that it's an excellent charity with a great reputation in Vancouver.
Right. Yeah. Wow. That's extremely powerful. Hey, Dev, got any Any last minute questions?
Yeah.
We got a lot of really cool stuff here.
No,
So
we covered a lot today. Thank you so much. Yeah, just kind of like one last question for you, and then we'll wrap it up from me. But I like to ask this to people. I think it's an interesting one. I think you'll like it. So, what
Uh,
would be like 3 points of wisdom? They can be super brief points of wisdom, or they can be as long as you want. Um, Points of wisdom that you've acquired throughout the years that you would express to a younger version of yourself. Let's say like your son's age, like 10,
Ooh.
after knowing all you know now.
wow. And
Could
I
be
have so
just
much more to learn.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
just about charitable living. It just be about your life's
Yeah.
journey. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But yeah.
3 points. The first is that oh, wow, big question. Should have sent that one. Should have sent that one in
Loaded.
advance.
Yeah.
Guys. Come on now.
You
Help
got to
us
hit
out
them.
here.
Hit them
These
when they
guys.
don't know.
Yeah, hit them
Yeah.
when they're down. Yeah.
Hit them when they don't.
Smack.
Uh,
On the not on the topic of charitable giving, but including the topic of charitable giving, I think some
Mm,
of the things we've talked about that are critical in life and critical to charitable giving is the first is like you got to get in the game,
mm, nice.
right?
Love it.
Get in the game, and once you're in the game, um, it's not like you seek to make mistakes, but like don't let the fear of mistakes prevent you from moving forward.
Mm,
In fact,
mm,
it's the mistakes that enable you to move forward, better, more quickly, more efficiently. So, point one, get in the game. Point two, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Learn from them instead. And number three is, I think something to do with love. So, you know, in in every game, there's all sorts of different positions, and in every positions, there's all sorts of different ways to play that position. That's true in work, that's true in soccer, that's true in every sport, in my experience. So find what you love and what you're good at, and focus your attentions there.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you're at that third point, start working your way back. And now back to the mistake ones are okay, and get in the game and stay in the game. I think that's what comes to mind. And just to plug the philanthropy piece, that's what I want donors to do too. Like there's no, like, you're not doing yourself or anyone else in society a favor by sitting on the sideline waiting to get rich before you start getting involved in giving. Get involved with a smaller amount of money, or use your time. As you start getting involved, do stuff so that you can learn from doing it, and you're certain you're going to make mistakes along the way.
Yes.
And as you start doing stuff, the more focused you are on the things that come naturally to you and that you love doing, the better it's going to be for you, and the more fun it's going to be.
Yeah. There's just one little thing I'm going to throw in there. This kind of nails everything what you've been saying too. Is a good friend of ours, Lynn Twist, runs a big charity down in San Francisco called the Pachamama Alliance. She says that hoarding of money, it sits, and over time it goes stagnant and stale. So money should flow out, and when it flows out, it naturally flows back in, even in a greater amount. And it needs to move. It needs to keep moving. When humans, we hoard and we hoard. We've never got enough. Like we said, we're never happy enough. We're never whatever enough. We haven't got enough to give. It gets stagnant. But when we let it out and it flows out, it flows back in, but it comes in like a fire hose. And and what my buddy Dave said, I think exactly what you said there too, is get in the game. He says, Nigel, just get in the game, man. Like, go give $5. Start somewhere, baby steps, and it'll all make sense after that. And so it's just like, you're so right. It's like, get in the game. And you're right. He's right. And, 25 years later, here we are. Yeah. Talking to you. It's fantastic.
Well, I appreciate
baby. Words to live
Get in
by.
the game. Stay in the game. Like, I appreciate being invited to play a small part in your game. So thank you very much for having me. It's cool to hang with you guys. It's like we should,
it's fantastic.
do this over a glass of wine one day.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
that's right. Darn right. You're not far away. All righty, Deb, you want to wrap her up?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, a lot today. Words to live by. Get in the game. Let's go. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And if you guys would like to know more, we'll put everything in the link of the description as always. Other than that, thank you so much, John Bromley, for coming on the show today. It was a pleasure talking to you, man.
Thanks for having me. You guys are cool.
Yeah, thanks a lot, John. Really, really
All right.
appreciate it. Have an
All right.
amazing day. It's a beautiful day out there.
Gorgeous. Thank you. Bye bye.